Toxic people, we've all met them. Some wear a smile while stabbing you in the back. Others drain you with constant negativity, and a few thrive on chaos just to keep you off balance. But here's the truth. You don't have to let them control your life, your energy, or your peace. You can deal with them smartly, effectively, and without losing who you are in the process. The first thing you need to understand is this. Toxic people feed on reactions. They thrive on pulling you into their drama. The smarter you get, the less you give them to feed on. That's the real game. Toxic people thrive on pushing boundaries because they know most people are too uncomfortable to push back. They test limits, they see how far they can go, and they take advantage of your hesitation. And here's the truth. If you don't set boundaries, you're basically giving them permission to keep draining you. You're handing them the keys to your peace of mind. That's why learning to set and enforce boundaries isn't just a nice idea. It's survival. Think about it. Every time you tolerate a disrespectful comment, every time you agree to something you don't want to do just to avoid conflict, every time you let someone guilt you into saying yes when your whole body is screaming no, you're teaching them how to treat you. People learn what they can and cannot do around you. And toxic people, more than anyone else, are experts at reading those unspoken rules. If you give them an inch, they'll take a mile, then act like you're the unreasonable one when you finally snap. Boundaries aren't about being rude. They're about drawing a clear line between where you end and someone else begins. It's telling people, this is my space. This is my energy. This is my peace. And you don't get to cross it unless I allow it. Toxic people hate boundaries because boundaries expose their tactics. When you say, I can't talk right now, or that doesn't work for me, or I won't tolerate being spoken to that way, you're shutting down their ability to manipulate, guilt trip, or control you. But here's the challenge. Most of us were never taught how to set boundaries. We grew up believing that saying no is selfish, that we have to be agreeable to be liked, that avoiding conflict is the mature thing to do. And toxic people exploit that conditioning. They count on you being too nice, too polite, too eager to keep the peace. That's why you need to retrain yourself to see boundaries not as walls, but as guardrails. Guardrails keep cars from driving off cliffs. Boundaries keep your soul from being driven off a cliff. Let's make it practical. Imagine you have a coworker who always dumps their responsibilities on you. You think, it's just easier if I do it myself. But what happens? They keep piling more on your plate, and suddenly you're drowning while they're coasting. Setting a boundary might sound like, I can't take this on. I have my own workload to finish. That's not rude. That's reality. Or maybe you have a friend who constantly calls you to complain, but never listens when you need support. Instead of sitting there absorbing their negativity every night, you draw the line, I don't have the energy for this conversation right now. Again, not rude, just honest. And don't think for a second that boundaries only apply to strangers or casual acquaintances. Sometimes the hardest boundaries to set are with family. A toxic parent, sibling, or relative can drain you more than anyone else because you feel obligated to put up with it. But family doesn't mean free access to your life. Love doesn't mean tolerating disrespect. You can say, I love you, but I won't accept being spoken to this way. You can love someone and still protect yourself from their behavior. Enforcing boundaries is where most people stumble. It's one thing to say, I won't tolerate this. It's another thing to follow through when someone tests it. And trust me, toxic people will test it. They'll push back. They'll try to guilt you, shame you, or make you question yourself. But this is where you hold firm. If you draw a line and then let someone walk all over it, your boundary becomes meaningless. It's like locking your front door, but leaving the window wide open. If you want people to take your boundaries seriously, you have to take them seriously yourself. The truth is, setting boundaries is uncomfortable at first. You'll feel guilty. You'll feel selfish. You'll worry that people won't like you. But here's the paradox. The people who truly respect you will respect your boundaries. The only ones who get angry when you enforce boundaries are the ones who benefited from you not having them. And that tells you everything you need to know. Boundaries don't push the right people away. They filter the wrong people out. The friend who respects your time, the colleague who values your limits, the partner who honors your needs, they'll stay. The ones who disappear when you stop sacrificing yourself for them, they were never really there for you. They were there for what they could get from you. So ask yourself, where in your life are you allowing toxicity because you're afraid to set a boundary? Is it in your workplace, in your relationships, in your family? You'll notice a shift the moment you start saying no without apology, the moment you stop explaining yourself, the moment you stop feeling responsible for someone else's reaction. Boundaries are about you, not them. You don't need their approval to enforce them. You don't need them to agree. You just need to stand on your own line and hold it, no matter how much someone else tries to cross it. Because at the end of the day, boundaries aren't about keeping others out. They're about keeping yourself intact. And if you don't protect your energy, your time, your peace, trust me, nobody else will. All right, here's the second key point, fully expanded in a direct, commanding style, around 800 words, without any subtitle or conclusion. Toxic people are masters of provocation. They know exactly what buttons to push, when to push them, and how to get under your skin. They'll use insults, passive-aggressive comments, gossip, guilt trips, anything that triggers an emotional reaction. Why? Because your reaction is their power source. The moment you lose your cool, they win. They feed off your anger, your frustration, your need to defend yourself. And the smarter you get, the more you realize that the key to beating them isn't in matching their energy, it's in mastering your own. Think about the last time a toxic person pushed you over the edge. Maybe they embarrassed you in front of others, or they twisted your words until you sounded like the bad guy. In that moment, your blood boiled. You wanted to snap back, to prove them wrong, to defend yourself. But here's the trap. When you react emotionally, you're no longer in control of the situation. They are. Toxic people thrive on chaos. They want you to lose composure, because when you do, you look unstable, and they look like the calm one. That's why emotional control is one of the smartest weapons you can develop. It doesn't mean you don't feel angry, hurt, or frustrated. It means you don't let those emotions dictate your actions. It's the ability to stand in the fire without letting it burn you down. It's being calm when everyone else is losing their head. And toxic people hate that. They can't stand when they throw everything at you and you don't flinch. Picture this. Someone insults you in a meeting, takes a jab at your competence, expecting you to snap. Instead, you stay calm. You don't raise your voice. You don't rush to defend yourself. You simply let the silence hang, maybe even respond with a calm, interesting perspective. Suddenly, the power shifts. They look petty. You look unbothered. Emotional control flips the script. It's not easy. Your instincts will scream at you to defend yourself. But here's the mindset shift. You don't have to prove yourself to toxic people. They're not interested in the truth. They're interested in dragging you into their storm. So why go there? Every time you choose calm over chaos, you're refusing to play their game. Emotional control is also about being proactive instead of reactive. Toxic people bait you into reacting, but when you already know their patterns, you stop being surprised by their behavior. You start expecting it. And when you expect it, you can prepare for it. Instead of thinking, why are they doing this to me? You think, of course they're doing this. That's who they are. That simple shift keeps you grounded. Let's break it down. Emotional control is about three things: awareness, composure, and response. Awareness means you recognize what's happening in real time. You catch yourself getting triggered. You feel the heat rising, but instead of exploding, you think, this is the trap. Composure means you take a breath, you ground yourself, you don't let the surge of emotion dictate your words, and response means you choose strategically what to say, or not say at all. Sometimes the smartest response is silence. Sometimes it's a short, neutral answer that gives nothing away. Think of emotional control like a poker game. The one who shows their hand too quickly loses. Toxic people are playing a game with you, whether you realize it or not. If you let your emotions spill everywhere, they've got you. But if you hold steady, unreadable, calm, they can't play you. They get frustrated because their tricks stop working. This doesn't mean you become a robot with no feelings. It means you channel your emotions instead of letting them explode. Anger, for example, isn't bad. It's energy. Controlled anger can become fuel for setting firmer boundaries, for walking away, for standing up for yourself in a clear and powerful way. Uncontrolled anger, on the other hand, becomes ammunition for the toxic person to use against you. And let's be real, emotional control isn't just about protecting yourself in the moment. It's about protecting your long-term reputation. People remember how you handle conflict. If you lose it every time someone pushes you, you'll be seen as volatile. But if you stay composed under pressure, you'll be respected. Even in the workplace, in relationships, in family dynamics, the person who stays calm usually has the most influence. Calmness is strength. One of the best ways to practice emotional control is to pause. A pause is powerful. Someone attacks you, and instead of firing back, you wait. You breathe. You collect your thoughts. That pause robs them of the satisfaction of seeing you react. It also gives you the space to choose your next move with precision instead of regret. Because how many times have you said something in anger that you later wished you could take back? A pause prevents that. Another technique is detachment. You remind yourself, this is not about me. This is about them. Their words are a projection of their own issues, their own insecurities, their own chaos. When you detach from their behavior, you stop absorbing it. You stop making their opinion of you your reality. And that detachment gives you a freedom they can never touch. Emotional control also sends a message. Toxic people can't mess with you. They might try once, twice, 3 times, but when they realize you don't break, they lose interest. They move on to easier targets. Because toxic people don't like battles they can't win. They thrive on weakness, not strength. So every time you feel that rising heat inside, remember, that's the test. That's the moment where you either hand them your power or you hold it. The strongest people in the room are not the loudest, not the ones yelling and throwing accusations. The strongest are the ones who can stand in the storm and stay unshaken. That's emotional control. And once you master it, toxic people lose their grip on you completely. One of the smartest strategies for dealing with toxic people is simple. Limit your exposure and communication. Not every battle needs to be fought. Not every conversation needs to happen. The more time and energy you give toxic people, the more space they occupy in your life. They thrive when they have access to you. Cut that access down and you starve their influence. Think about it. Time is the most valuable resource you have. Energy is just as important. And toxic people are thieves of both. They don't just take your time when they're physically around you, they steal it even after they leave because you're replaying the argument in your head, overanalyzing what they said, wondering what you should have done differently. They live rent-free in your mind long after the interaction ends. Limiting exposure isn't just about how much time you spend with them physically. It's also about how much mental real estate you allow them to occupy. Start with your physical exposure. If you can, reduce the amount of time you spend in their presence. If it's a friend who drains you with constant negativity, see them less often. If it's a coworker who gossips and spreads drama, don't linger by their desk or join in their conversations. If it's a family member who never respects your boundaries, shorten the length of visits or meet in environments where it's easier to step away. You don't need to cut everyone off completely to make a difference. Sometimes even reducing contact by half changes everything. But here's the reality. You can't always remove toxic people from your life completely. Maybe it's your boss, a colleague, or a relative you can't avoid. That's where limiting communication becomes critical. The way you talk to them determines how much control they have over you. Toxic people feed on long explanations, emotional defenses, and oversharing. The more information you give them, the more ammunition they have to twist against you. That's why the smartest communication strategy is to keep it short, simple, and neutral. When they ask intrusive questions, don't overshare. When they provoke you, don't defend yourself. When they try to bait you into conflict, don't take the hook. Your answers don't need to be long. They can be one word, yes, no, noted. Okay, every time you strip down your responses, you take away their power to manipulate. Think of it like fueling a fire. If you keep throwing logs on, it grows. If you stop feeding it, eventually it burns out. This strategy is often called gray rocking. Imagine being as uninteresting as a gray rock. Toxic people want drama, they want emotion, they want intensity. When you give them nothing, just calm, bland responses, they lose interest. You stop being fun for them to mess with. And that's exactly what you want. Here's the mistake most people make. They think they owe toxic people explanations. They think, if I just explain myself, maybe they'll understand. But toxic people don't want to understand. They want control. The more you explain, the more they twist your words. So stop over-explaining. Stop defending every choice you make. A clear no, that doesn't work for me, is stronger than a 10-minute speech justifying why. Even your body language can help limit communication. Toxic people read tone, gestures, and facial expressions like weapons. If you look frustrated, they'll push harder. If you look hurt, they'll attack deeper. But if you stay neutral, calm, face, steady tone, relaxed posture, you give them nothing to work with. They can't read you, and that frustrates them more than any argument ever could. It's also important to limit digital exposure. Toxic people don't just drain you in person. They drain you through texts, calls, and social media. If you're constantly bombarded with messages that spike your stress, you need to create digital boundaries. Don't respond immediately. Mute notifications. Block or unfollow if you need to. Just because someone has your number doesn't mean they have unlimited access to your time and attention. Another layer of limiting exposure is controlling your mental focus. Even when toxic people aren't physically present, you might still hear their voice in your head. You might replay the insult, the argument, the manipulation. That's wasted energy. You have to train yourself to shift focus. When you catch yourself overthinking something they said, redirect your mind. Ask, why am I letting them live in my head for free? What do I gain from replaying this? The answer is always nothing. Don't give them mental rent they haven't earned. This is where routines and self-discipline matter. The less idle time you have to dwell on toxic interactions, the stronger you stay. Fill your life with positive people, meaningful activities, and goals that matter to you. Toxic people lose power when they're no longer the center of your attention. The more you build a fulfilling life outside of them, the smaller they become in comparison. And here's something to remember. Limiting exposure doesn't make you weak or avoidant. It makes you strategic. Smart fighters don't step into every battle. They choose the ones worth fighting. Sometimes the best move isn't to confront. It's to disengage. It's not about being scared of them. It's about valuing your peace over their drama. Walking away isn't surrender. It's a power move. Because toxic people don't just want to win arguments. They want to wear you down. They want to sap your strength until you're too exhausted to resist. But when you limit their access, physically, verbally, mentally, you keep your energy for yourself. And that's how you stay strong in the long game. There comes a moment when the smartest, strongest, and most self-respecting choice you can make is to walk away. Not to argue one more time. Not to hope they'll finally change. Not to explain yourself for the 100th time. Just walk. Because the truth is, some toxic people will never stop being toxic. No matter how patient you are, no matter how much you try to reason with them, no matter how many chances you give, they will keep pulling you into the same cycle of chaos. And if you're not careful, you'll waste years of your life hoping they'll become someone they're not. Walking away doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you've lost. In fact, it's the opposite. It means you've recognized the game, and you're smart enough to stop playing it. Toxic people thrive on keeping you stuck. Stuck in arguments, stuck in guilt, stuck in a never-ending loop of maybe it'll be different this time. Walking away breaks the loop. It's not running away from the problem. It's refusing to be the problem's prisoner any longer. Think about it. How many times have you stayed in a relationship, a friendship, or a work environment that drained you simply because you thought leaving would be too hard? You told yourself, maybe they'll change, or maybe if I just try harder, things will get better. But did they? Or did you just keep lowering your standards while they kept raising their toxicity? At some point, you have to ask, how much more of my peace am I willing to sacrifice for someone who doesn't respect me? Walking away is not abandonment, it's self-preservation. You're not responsible for fixing toxic people. You're not responsible for carrying their baggage, for healing their wounds, for enduring their chaos. That's their job, not yours. Your responsibility is to protect your own mental, emotional, and even physical well-being. And sometimes the only way to do that is to cut ties completely. This isn't easy, especially when the toxic person is someone close to you. Family, a long-term friend, a partner you've invested years in. The emotional bonds make it feel impossible to leave. You think of the good times, the potential, the history. But here's the harsh reality. History doesn't excuse toxicity. Just because someone's been in your life for years doesn't mean they've earned the right to keep hurting you. Time served is not loyalty if it comes at the cost of your peace. The hardest part of walking away is often the guilt. Toxic people are masters at making you feel like you're the problem. They'll say you're selfish, that you've changed, that you're abandoning them. They'll twist it so that you feel like the villain for protecting yourself. But guilt is just another weapon they use to keep you hooked. You have to recognize it for what it is, manipulation. You don't owe anyone unlimited access to you just because they demand it. Another obstacle is fear. Fear of being alone, fear of starting over, fear of the unknown. Toxic people count on that fear to keep you in place. But ask yourself, is being alone really worse than constantly being drained? Is starting over really worse than staying stuck? Fear loses its grip the moment you realize that peace is more valuable than familiarity. Walking away might feel scary at first, but once you taste the freedom of being out of their orbit, you'll wonder why you didn't do it sooner. And walking away doesn't always mean some big, dramatic exit. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's simply choosing not to answer the call, not to respond to the message, not to show up to the argument. Sometimes it's a gradual distancing until the toxic person realizes they no longer have access to you. The power is in your choice. You decide how much of you they get. And when you decide they get nothing, that's when you take your power back completely. The truth is, walking away teaches people how to treat you. It says, I value myself enough not to settle for disrespect. It shows others and yourself that you won't tolerate anything less than what you deserve. And when you make that move, the right people will respect you for it. The wrong people will be angry, but that only proves they were never for you in the first place. Sometimes walking away is the only language toxic people understand. When words fail, when boundaries are ignored, when every other strategy has been tested, silence and distance speak the loudest. You can't control how they behave, but you can control how much of it you allow in your life. That's the ultimate power. So when you feel torn, when your heart says stay, but your soul feels heavy, ask yourself, what am I losing by staying, and what could I gain by leaving? The answer will tell you everything you need to know, because deep down, you already know when it's time to walk away. The question is whether you're brave enough to do it. Dealing with toxic people isn't about outshouting them, outfighting them, or trying to fix them. It's about outsmarting them. It's about protecting your energy, holding your ground, and refusing to let their chaos dictate your life. You do that by setting boundaries so clear that they know exactly where you stand. You do it by mastering your emotions, because the calmest person in the room is always the strongest. You do it by limiting their access, less time, fewer words, less energy, and starving them of the fuel they crave. And when all else fails, when they refuse to respect your limits, you do it by walking away with your head held high. The truth is, you cannot control who's toxic, but you can control how much of your life they get to touch. You can decide whether they drain you or whether they fade into the background. Protecting your peace is not selfish, it's survival. Guard your energy like it's gold, because it is. And never forget this, the moment you stop letting toxic people write the script for your life is the moment you take your power back.